Welcome back to Scale Me Down and to part 3 in this mini-series where we build, fly and review this 3-metre Mini Moa vintage glider kit from the Tony Ray range of aeromodels. Remember to like and subscribe to support the channel. Back in episode 2 we completed the wings, so in this episode we're going to tackle the fuselage. We are ploughing through this giant pile of wood and it's becoming much more manageable. Let's get going. I'm chopping through the retaining tags, freeing the parts from the sheets of balsa and plywood. The laser cutting is clean and very accurate. Next, the keel components are glued together and pinned down to the board over the drawing. I'm using standard aliphatic glue for all these joints. Assembling this section with CA, keeping the components true as this section forms the wing box and landing gear mount. Once this section is glued and pinned down to the keel, we can add the remaining fuselage frames. To make this easier, the part numbers are etched into the plywood frames, along with a little T denoting the top. Now we can fit the supplied canopy retaining magnets. Including this part in the nose structure was fiddly and awkward, so I used CA glue for this job. I also had to get creative as to how to pin this frame down. In the end, I pushed a pin into the board and glued the frame to it. Stringers are added to each fuselage half, like an old-fashioned free flight kit. Once set, I can remove them from the board, and here we found one or two issues. Firstly, there's not enough stringer material supplied in the kit, and what is supplied is too short and must be spliced. If you're not a seasoned builder, rather than use butt joints, we make splice joints instead by stacking the wood together and cutting the ends at a shallow angle. When we glue them back together, it spreads the stresses over a greater area. I replaced the longeron stock altogether so that I could stagger where the splice joints occur, and I've marked them here. And that avoids creating a weak spot. The rudder is only fastened down here, with only this thin balsa to hold the hinges. It's not mentioned anywhere in the instructions or the plans, but I will add some balsa block infill in this area before the halves are joined. This construction method will make it easy to build a banana, so it's important to check for twists and warps as we join the halves. Once the halves are joined, but whilst we still have access, we have some more parts to add, which include this brushless motor mount, the captive nuts on the bottom of the tailplane seat, and I took this opportunity to draw around the shape of these bays. I'll show you why later. Now for the elephant in the room, the wing joiners. And this is what the instructions suggest. Just no. First, I cut away the two upper stringers to gain some access. This was most annoying. I fitted the wings and after roughening the PVC tubes, tacked them in place with medium CA. I then anchored them with fillets made from bicarbonate of soda and thin CA. As all the flight forces are transmitted through this area, I thought it prudent to reinforce these joints. So I bound them with cotton thread, which I later soaked in epoxy. All finished and nice and strong. Now we can move on to sheeting the fuselage. The sheeting is laser cut, and some of the panels are in two parts that you glue together before applying. I soaked the outside surface of the wood with water and applied the sheeting with CA glue, but I found the balsa much too hard for this purpose. This job was quite difficult as the stringer material is very soft, and I broke quite a few whilst fitting the sheeting. Still, I got there in the end, but I had to work hard to ensure a twist-free fuselage. Meanwhile, the nose section is planked from strips of pre-cut balsa. This process is similar to how a boat is constructed. It's easy and you soon get into a rhythm. Each strip is marked and cut a bit long. I taper each strip towards the nose. Chamfering the edges a bit makes them fit a bit better. I bend them into position, securing them with CA glue and activator. I add them symmetrically, one side and then the other. Before long, it was all completed, and it made me wonder why the whole fuselage isn't finished in this manner. It would probably have been easier, and it would have avoided joints across the fuselage. I shall trim the ends flush, and then I'll show you why I drew round those bays earlier. Transferred the shapes onto my own balsa sheet, and then infilled between each stringer and bulkhead. The nose block is laminated from several laser cut pieces. It's designed with a hollow inside, which is ideal for the nose weight, or in our case, the tow release. Just before all that planking and sheeting all gets carved and sanded to shape, I should just box in the wing roots. With just a few bits and pieces left to go, the build is almost complete, and we're now up to around 40 hours of building time, not including the time taken for the glue to set. I've kept any modifications to a minimum, only deviating where I deem it absolutely necessary. And on the whole, I've really enjoyed this build, particularly the wings and tail surfaces. However, there have been one or two issues and some unorthodox building methods which make this kit unsuited to a novice builder. Join us next time for part 4, where we'll fit the radio gear and cover the model. And in the meanwhile, I'll leave you with some clips of the last major part of the assembly, the cockpit hatch, as it's done in exactly the same way as the forward fuselage. Thanks for watching.